Hey guys, Scary Stories here. I hope you're doing well tonight. I got a couple more stories for you. These ones are all about cabins in the woods. Well, technically the first story is more of a treehouse. Well, the kids think it's a treehouse, but well, you know what? Just listen to the video and you'll figure it out. Anyways, I hope you enjoy. When I was 14, I made a friend who was obsessed with ghosts or just anything mildly creepy. We lived down the street from each other, and the backs of our houses were facing a rather large wooded area that we often played in. And this also meant that we rode the bus together every day and drove past those woods all the time. On those drives to school, I'd occasionally see what I thought was another kid's treehouse in those woods. When I eventually told Dana, my friend, what I saw, I told him that we had to go check it out. Of course, with the distinct intention of taking over the place if we found it to be useful. Dana's stop was first, and I got off with him. Then, throwing our things onto his couch, we set off into the woods. Once we did, I got the distinct feeling that we, or at least I, wasn't welcome there. I looked over to Dana, but he seemed unmoved and eager to press on. So, sucking it up, I followed him to the side of the hill and over a path that lay on the edge of the woods. He led me to a path that led straight back to where we thought the structure was, and after about 20 minutes of searching, we found an old, burnt-out shack laying about 30 yards away from a wire fence of someone else's property. Dana glanced at me nervously, but stepped into the shack, pulling me in behind him. Debris and dirt covered what little of the floor was left in the shack, but even more disturbing than that was that several dead birds, or bird pieces, were strewn about in a gruesome mess, and I noted that the majority of the birds appeared to have red feathers. Stepping back out, I walked over to the fence and was met with the roar of an angry ranch owner telling me to get away from his property and to stay out of the old shack. When I asked him what it was, he told me that it was his grandfather's smokehouse. I turned to leave and took one last look at the shack. It certainly didn't look like a smokehouse to me, but I definitely wasn't about to press this guy on the subject. I called out to Dana, wondering where he could have gone, but after receiving no reply, I grew frustrated and decided to just meet him back at the house. Retracing the winding path we took to get there, I spotted what appeared to be Dana's dark blonde hair moving swiftly down one of the side paths. Deciding to get even for leaving me, I began to stalk my friend deeper into the woods, and soon began wondering why on earth he was heading away from his house and the shack. Dana turned the corner around some trees, and I quickly ran up to go jump out at him and scare him. Grinning menacingly, I jumped out into a large, darkened clearing, and to my surprise found nothing. Not a single trace of my friend. By this point, I'm on the verge of panic, concerned that my friend might have hurt himself. I screamed his name at the top of my lungs, and to my shock and horror, I heard his faint reply. It was coming from all the way on the other side of the woods, towards the entrance we came through to the shack. A chill went through me just as I realized what was happening, and without a second thought, I began to scream Dana's name at the top of my lungs, too scared to move. Within a few minutes, he came running around the corner out of breath and just looking panicked. Afterwards, we found the way to his house, and I told him what happened. He, in turn, told me that he couldn't find me after we left the shack, and that he had just gone straight back to the entrance of the woods to look for me. I walked home the long way, just to avoid being near those woods. When I got home, I went straight to my room, careful to avoid all the windows that faced the back. I don't know what I saw that day. I haven't gone back into the woods since, with Dana or not. Whoever it was out there, it still feels like they're watching me in my house, peering at me from the woods, being stared at through the windows, even after 4 years. From time to time, late at night, I do see a figure out in those woods, just standing there by the fence at the end of our property line, not wanting to antagonize him any more than I already have. I always just close the curtains. Okay, you thought that last one was scary? This one really does involve a cabin. A few years ago, my dad and I were out on a hunting trip together in Minnesota where we experienced something I'll never forget. Hudson, our dog, was sleeping in the living room when all of a sudden he started to bark at the door. I mean, really bark, like he was going to smash through the door and attack whatever was out there. My dad and I went out to the living room to calm him down, but he was standing by the door, hair standing up and barking like mad. Hudson started pawing at the door, all the while continuing to bark. I looked out the window, expecting to see a wolf or a bear wandering around, but I couldn't see anything at all. We had motion sensors on the front of the cabin to deter raccoons in the middle of the night, and it wasn't even tripped at all. Eventually Hudson calmed down, but he was still restless for the rest of the night. I could hear him walking around the cabin. It was almost as if he was standing guard over the whole place. We went out for our first day of hunting, but there wasn't anything worth firing at. Later on, when we went back to the cabin, we went outside for a cigarette, me and my dad. We started talking, and my dad pointed out that the night was unusually quiet, and I pointed out that the day was too. Something around here was definitely off. The woods were just too quiet. Our dog began to bark again, even more ferocious than he was the night before. We went back into the cabin, and I tried to hush him again, but he still wasn't listening. Again, I peered out the window, but didn't see anything. This time the motion sensor was on. I did begin to make out some kind of movement outside the light, and I strained my eyes to see. I finally got my dad to look outside, and his demeanor changed. He wasn't so laid back anymore. He was stiffened and agitated. "That's not a bear, son," he said to me. I went over to the gun rack and grabbed my rifle. My dad was instantly in front of me. "You shoot at that thing, we're gonna have one hell of a problem. Just let it do its thing and wander off like last night." I went to the window again and looked outside. The motion sensors were off, but I could just make out some movement. It was still there. Hudson quieted down and started pacing around again. I told my dad I think it left, and he looked like he was relieved. He went to the kitchen, grabbed 2 glasses, and poured us both a serving of Jack, his favorite whiskey. He said he did catch a glimpse of the thing, but it looked like a wolf, just too big and bulky though. I don't know how long I was asleep that night, but I woke up to another round of Hudson's incessant barking. He was pawing at my door and barking like mad. I glanced to the window to the right of my bed and damn near fell out of it. Whatever Hudson was barking at was peering into the window. This was not a wolf. The thing was gigantic, and it was staring right back at me. It was furry and black, had yellow eyes that looked like they were glowing, ears that were triangular and sitting on top of its head, long canine teeth, and a long, wolf-like muzzle. It looked like it was hunched over or crouching down so that it could look into the window. Then, I swear, it licked the screen of the window. I leapt out of the bed and bolted out of the room. My dad was already awake, and I started yelling at him that the thing was outside. I grabbed my rifle again, not caring about my dad's warning, but it was gone. My dad was right behind me and told me not to shoot, that it would just piss it off. He told me, and I poop you not, he thought it was a werewolf. I saw the thing with my own eyes. It really did look like a werewolf, like one of those things from Underworld. He told me that when he saw it, it was standing on two legs, and it must have been at least 8 feet tall. And I moved out of the bedroom and into the living room, and I looked out the windows. The sensors were tripped again, but I couldn't see anything anywhere. Eventually Hudson calmed down again, and all was quiet. I continued to stare out the window, watching for any signs of this creature's return. For the rest of the night, neither of us slept. We just waited. Every time Hudson got up, my body twitched, waiting for him to start barking again, but he never did. The sun rose, and we walked around the cabin, but found nothing. There wasn't any signs of a werewolf like we had seen from the night before. I thought to myself that maybe Hudson could pick up the trail, and when I said it aloud to my dad, I heard how foolish it sounded. It dawned on me that I don't think I really wanted to find the thing, even if Hudson could pick up a trail. My dad said that we should probably just go back to the cabin and pack up. I can't say I had a problem with that. So, what'd you think of those ones? Now, before you say the last one was definitely fake, just remember, have you ever seen the movie Creep? Maybe it was a dude terrorizing these guys, dressed up like a werewolf. Remember the wolf mask? I'm just saying, it's possible. I don't think it was a real werewolf, but I don't know. Maybe they were drunk and there's a guy terrorizing them. That seems possible. There's some crazy people out there. Regardless, I hope you did enjoy the stories. If you did, maybe give this video a like. Maybe subscribe if you haven't already. Maybe share this video around. Maybe watch another one of mine. It all helps out the algorithm. You can always check out my Twitter. I sometimes leave it in the pinned comment down below. I post a lot of horror movie stuff over there. But I'll leave it at that for now. I hope you're taking care of yourself, and I hope you are treating yourself with a little decency and a lot of respect. Life's too short, so don't be so hard on yourself. But I'll catch you in the next one, and I hope you have a good night. Bye for now.